You're listening to the BBC World Service. I'm Julian Waraker with Weekend. With me throughout the programme, Timandra Harkness, a British writer, broadcaster and presenter, and Ganeshan Wignaraja, an economist and visiting senior fellow at the ODI think tank and an advisor on trade to the Sri Lankan government. Now, one of the most anticipated boxing fights in a generation is taking place tonight in the Saudi Arabian capital, Riyadh. It's for the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship of the world, and the Ukrainian fighter Alexander Usyk takes on Britain's Tyson Fury. The winner will be the first undisputed World Heavyweight Champion since 1999. Well, in Riyadh is the BBC's Adi Adedoyan, who's reporting on the fight tonight. So the context here is this one really matters because of all those firsts that I've just outlined a moment ago, Adi.
Yes, Julian. And, you know, the heavyweight division is the blue ribbon division of boxing. It carries the sport. And when you think about some of the former champions that have cut through to an unboxing audience, a lot of them have come from that division. The likes of Muhammad Ali, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield. And when it's vibrant, it really carries the sport. They've got lots of different belts in boxing, so it can get a bit confusing, which is why this is so important to have one undisputed champion of the world, one man who holds all the major belts. And as you say, it's been a quarter of a century since we had that. That was Lennox Lewis when he beat Evander Holyfield to win the titles. Lewis and Holyfield are here, and some of the other great fighters of the past are here as well. So there really is a sense of a big fight atmosphere.
How come it's in Riyadh?
Money, quite simply. It takes a lot to negotiate these fights, but the Saudi authorities have splashed the cash and they're offering these fighters life-changing sums of money. You might want to sit down, Julian, when I tell you this, that Tyson Fury allegedly is going to earn about 82 million for 36 minutes work. Anthony Joshua, when he fought Francis Ngannou, a former mixed martial arts champion earlier this year, allegedly earned about 40 million. That fight only lasted 2 rounds. When they're offering these fighters these sums of money, they certainly can't turn it down. But the issue is, it's creating a bit of controversy because human rights organizations are saying this is an opportunity, that the kingdom are using this to sports wash, to use sports, these major events that are coming here, to try and improve the country's image on account of its poor human rights record. They say that's not the case. They say this is part of what they call Vision 2030, to move away from an oil-based economy. It's a young population, and they see sport as a vehicle for change. But nonetheless, the criticism is there.
And you could point to football, to golf as well, couldn't you, in that context? I mean, I knew it was a lot of money, but as you say, those sums are seriously eye-watering. If you're travelling to Riyadh as a fan to watch this, what kind of an experience is that?
Well, this is the interesting thing, and this is another thing that's created a little bit of debate. If you have a major fight, say, in Las Vegas or in New York, the travelling fans were treated as a bit of a holiday. If you think back to those days when Ricky Hatton used to fight in Las Vegas and fill out the arenas, or when Conor McGregor fought in Las Vegas, it was a bit of a holiday for them. It's slightly different here, so you don't get the hordes of fans coming here. It's not quite the holiday destination, so the atmosphere is very different. There were some 2,000 Tyson Fury fans who arrived last night, and they made quite a noise. It was quite a carnival atmosphere. They were in good spirits at the weigh-in yesterday. So I expect him to have the lion's share of the support, but I think what the Saudi authorities essentially want to do by having all these major events here is to open up the kingdom to the Western world, to treat it as a holiday destination, but I think we are some way away from that.
Thank you so much, Adi Adedoyan. You will hear him, of course, later in the day as the story of that fight unfolds. Let's dwell for a moment on some of the political aspects of this, though, as Adi hinted at them. And we can hear from Waji Leon, a Saudi Arabian gay activist who is living in exile in the United States. Now, he describes himself as the first man to openly declare himself as gay from Saudi Arabia. He was granted asylum in the United States in 2018 after he felt it would be too unsafe to go back home. And he told me about his concerns about this high-profile boxing contest taking place in Saudi Arabia.
On one hand, I kind of feel proud that we finally have some sort of spotlight that we never had before. On the other hand, I feel ashamed because it's standing on a lot of blood. It's standing on the back of modern slavery. It's standing on a lot of political prisoners. It's standing on the beating of girls
I'm interested by your reference to the fact that there is part pride in your mind, and that's presumably there because you are still from Saudi Arabia and you want your country to do well.
Yes, indeed. I actually don't want to see any harm. But in the same time, enough is enough about lying about our circumstances. I've myself witnessed the first execution in my life when I was 10 years old, and I was just leaving a mosque. And it was 3 men and 1 woman. The executions, they're still happening behind closed doors because they don't want Westerners to see these very violent images in public. You have Suhail Yusuf Al-Yahya, for example, a Saudi gay man who was arrested in 2018, and then he memorized the Quran and got out on good behavior. He left Saudi Arabia. He came to the United States to be a student. They lured him back. They told him his mother is sick and threw him back in prison for 3 years, and he had another 800 lashes. He recently came out last year or so. We were able to see him around for a couple of months, and then the Saudi government made him disappear.
Is that what you fear would happen to you if you ever went back to Saudi now?
You wouldn't hear about me. You would just hear of my execution, because I have 2 death sentences from Saudi Arabia. One for being the first openly gay man and one for being an atheist. The day I accepted that I was gay, the day I accepted that I was applying for asylum in the United States, is the same day I accepted that there's a target on my back. But that's the reason why I'm still alive today. It's because I know that I'm constantly followed. I know that I'm constantly surveilled. I know that there are constant effort to try to lure me to go back to Saudi Arabia.
Going back to where our conversation began with reference to this huge boxing fight tonight, that is one of a number of examples of the Saudis throwing significant sums of money into the world of sport. Some people will call that sports washing. I wonder what you call it.
I call it Saudi Arabia adapting to a modern world public image. So we have to understand where Saudi Arabia was when we were at 2018 and the execution of Jamal Khashoggi. They thought they could start hiring public image firms to help boost their image. They realized that as soon as I, for example, come up and speak to you, I've destroyed all that investments that they have done, millions, if not billions of dollars. They realized that if they start owning sport teams, they will have more than just an ad on a newspaper. They will have more than just one-time coverage on the BBC or one-time coverage on CNN.
What does that then say to you about what you would like the leading sports figures and indeed the fans to do when Saudi Arabia comes along in a very tempting fashion with a lot of money and says, bring your sporting event here?
Listen, I'm not going to tell them don't enjoy your sport. But in the same time, I'm going to let them know that this is coming from a person that have committed very horrible acts. This is coming from a person that's trying to influence your culture and actually have a great influence not only on that, also on your policies. There are more than 500 former senior U.S. officials working for the Saudi government. I met with Ilhan Omar, and she literally said there's nothing I could do. That's Representative Senator Ilhan Omar in Washington, D.C. What's mainly happening is U.S. sovereignty is being undermined. U.S. security is being undermined. The American people are being taken advantage of. The European people will be taken advantage of. And all they see is the free big meal from McDonald's, which is the sport team that the Saudi government owned.
Waji Lion, a Saudi Arabian gay activist now in exile in the United States, reflecting on tonight's world heavyweight boxing title fight in Saudi Arabia. Timandra, I wonder what you take out of all of that.
I thought I was really struck by when he said that there's a mixture of kind of pride and worry. And I think this often happens with cultural and sporting things, that there is on the one hand the danger that you boycott an entire country, and that punishes all the people of the country and tries to make all the people of the country guilty for something. But then on the other hand, Saudi Arabia, very explicitly, you have the government offering money to people to do things. And it's
huge sums of money.
Huge sums of money, beyond our wildest dreams here at the BBC. and as you say, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, the government is extremely repressive and punishes not only people for being gay or women for not doing what women are meant to do there, but also political dissidents with the death penalty.
Ganeshan, we were talking earlier on in the programme about soft power. Now we're on to what some people will call sports washing. I asked you whether you think soft power works. Do you think sports washing works in the way that the Saudis are looking to make it work here?
So this idea that you can spend large sums of money on trying to shift your image of a country is really linked to this idea of Saudi wanting to try to become a services-based economy away from oil, right, as the oil dries out and so on, and they're investing a lot also in renewable energy sources. It really kind of traces back to Simon Arnold, who in 1998 or thereabouts talked about national branding. And national branding in terms of marketing is useful. It has been used by a number of Middle Eastern countries, Qatar, UAE, and others. But the best example of this, which has been done, is really Singapore, which has done this kind of national branding to make itself a hub for trading and investment and manufacturing in Asia and the world. But it has also done something Saudi probably hasn't quite done, which is opening up to foreign trade investment, people movement, and then some relaxation of the rights issue, which I think is important. I think that's probably the area they may have to think about. I mean, they're trying to become increasingly a tourist destination because there's some historic sites. But I think you have to do these other reforms to make the national branding work. Otherwise, you only shift it temporarily.
I was going to say to you, how do you judge the success of something like this? And it has to have a number of strands, doesn't it?
Yes. You see, the judging of success comes in the investment that may come, the trade that you might get, the tourists that may come. So there are some hard economic indicators, but whether that sustains into you shifting into a more service-based economy, which is their challenge, really requires these other reforms of more openness and so on. And some rights liberalization is also needed, as we see in Singapore, for instance, and also Malaysia that has done this quite successfully. So I think they have some lessons and some way to go.
You're listening to the BBC World Service. Now, this week,